Welcome to No Fluff, Just Ideas. This is your host, Sophocles, and we're going to be discussing investment ideas from around the world. So buckle up and enjoy. This podcast is for educational purposes only. Full disclaimer at the end of the podcast. Welcome, everyone. Today, I am very happy to have on the podcast my friend, Ole Søeberg. He is a professional Danish investor who I've known for some years now. He's been coming to my Cyprus event for, 7-8 years, I think now. Or
I think
was it
first time was 17?
17. I think that was the last one we did at the Cleopatra, right?
In Nicosia, yes.
Yeah, that was the last one we did in Nicosia. And Ole also does an event of his own called Nordic Value, which I've been to in Denmark, which I found fantastic. So you guys should check that out as well. A little bit of background on Ole. He started out in the 80s with some friends. Research didn't exist, so they actually made a monthly update of all the listed Danish companies while they were at business school. This was inspired by Value Line. So he printed and sold to banks and brokers for about 1,500 euros back then. They had 120 subscribers that kept two persons employed until 1986. And they closed it in 2018. Did you really go? You guys went for that long?
Yeah. I sold my shares in 99. There was a IT company that had plans to do it in a digital way because it was paper version. And they paid a nice price. And I was like, oh, they probably make it into a billion company now with the internet and all that stuff. But that didn't happen. And the company continued, and it closed down in 2018.
Well, and then at the same time, you were an analyst and worked in sales in London, Copenhagen, Stockholm for 15 years before moving to investor relations. Then you always wanted to go into asset management. You joined the boards of Carnegie Worldwide and Skagen Funds. In 2011, you joined with the daily operations, and you had the opportunity to work with the co-owner. So later on, you created your own business that you've been running for 8 years, a global equity using growth at a reasonable price on good companies with high return on invested capital, profitability, good capital discipline, and not being priced insanely. I would say that sounds like a recipe for success. And I do know that you are a very patient investor who thinks very long term. You had a few hundred baggers, including Samsung and Royal Unibrew. And you've held Novo Nordisk for some years, and this will be the topic today. I've actually been thinking about Novo Nordisk and you, and I've always wanted to have you on the show. And I think now that Novus has been dropping like a rock, it's a great opportunity to finally have this conversation. So welcome.
Thank you, Sophocles. Nice introduction. Thank you.
I'm sure most people have some familiarity with Novo Nordisk. Do you want to give us like just a quick overview?
Okay, let's, thinking long term. Novo Nordisk IPO'd in 1974. At that point in time, it was a 50-year-old company. And they IPO'd at a market cap equal to 470 million Danish. So that's in euro. In today's currency, it's like 150, no, not even. I mean, it's 60 million euro or so. So it's a tiny company. And it was not even a hot issue when it listed. Anyway, they focused on the diabetes treatment in pig-based. You retrieved insulin out of pigs. And in the very old days, that from the invention, you needed almost 1 million pigs to make just 1 liter of active ingredient. So that was very expensive in the very old days, and Novo Nordisk refined the processes. So when they listed, and for the first 20 years basically of the company, they were mostly focused on traditional human insulin treatment for diabetics. So they've saved a lot of lives, because if you get diabetics, either version 1, which is inherited, or version 2, which is achieved through unhealthy living, and your BMI gets too big, then you have a risk of getting diabetes type 2. So it basically kills you in the long run. So treating diabetes has helped a lot of people into a better life. They have, over the years, they split out. They had an enzyme business, which is listed today. It's called Novo Nordisk. It was called Novozymes for many years. That was split out in the year 2000. And since 2000, it's basically been Novo Nordisk as the pharmaceutical company and Novo Nordisk, Novozymes, the enzyme business. If you go and see them, you'll see the two companies are basically next door to each other still in Bagsvær, which is just like 7 kilometers from where I live. But obviously they're completely split. But the Novo Nordisk Foundation, the holding company, still control both companies. They figured out like 2008 and 10 that the new GPL-1 or glucagon-like peptides, they can be used to stimulate the production of insulin, and that way around you can treat diabetes with it. And it had a positive side effect that in the test trials, people using it, they started losing weight. The first product to lose weight came to market in 2013 called Saxenda, based on the Victoza insulin or diabetes treatment. And things really took off like 5 years ago when they launched Ozempic, and the weight loss version is called Wegovy. But you can see in media a lot of so-called celebrities and other people that want to slim up a little bit before they go on television or into a new movie. They said, now we take Ozempic and we lose weight faster than we would otherwise do. And today, the whole story for Novo Nordisk started to evolve around weight loss drugs. They are not the only one in town. So Eli Lilly is in there. And over the last, let's just say last 1 year, since the summer last year, Novo Nordisk had a number of setbacks in terms of how much weight you lose vis-a-vis Eli Lilly. They've had setbacks because demand was so big that they couldn't deliver. So then there's emergency rules, and you have compounders or copycats coming into the market. Eventually, the CEO was ousted in May this year. So there was suddenly a lot of mess going on, and the stock price going down 60% from the peak. So is this a good time to jump into the stock price? That is I think, the subject of today's conversation.
Yeah. No, that's great. That's great. I mean, taking a step back so we can face these one by one. I mean, their whole thing used to be insulin and type 1 diabetes. And, that's still around, and type 1 is faced via insulin. Now, that segment on its own, has that become commoditized, or do they still have some sort of moat there?
No, it's not really. You can do, if you have type 1 and you live in a poor country, then you can get human insulin for like less than $100 a year. So it's very inexpensive, but you still risk having insulin shocks every now and then, which is the thing that could kill you in the worst case. So the prices are so low in that segment, so that they have the volume production, and I think Eli Lilly has the same, but that's not really where the game is. The game is for the diabetes treatment, the better quality drugs where there's much lower risk of having insulin shocks, and the treatment methods are much smoother than they are with traditional treatment, where you have to, from a vial, you have to take the active ingredient out into a needle and then inject it into yourself, which for some people, and I think quite a lot, is a little bit of a challenge to put a needle into yourself. So
don't they have those machines? They use those machines.
Yeah, I mean, the new versions is they look like bigger than a pen, but you basically just inject it with an ultra thin needle, and it's much easier to manage than the traditional ways of doing it. The diabetes is fairly protected since it's Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk basically doing it.
So they still have I guess still have a moat within insulin for the modern methods.
But I think that's more protected than the weight loss business, where there's many more players coming in.
Okay, because this insulin business is still very important. In 24, it was 55 billion coronas out of the 290. And then there's The other division that people don't pay any attention to, but I thought I just mentioned here, is the rare disease segment that got a little bit of a jump in the last 2 quarters. Do you think at all about that?
It's a 20 billion Danish revenue stream. So
Yes.
it's like, let's say, 3 billion US. And it's growth hormones for individuals that you check when they are babies or small, that, okay, there's something, they're not growing the way they should do. And then you can give growth hormones and people actually get to their normal height instead of being smaller. And then it's for bleeding. And I think the growth you've seen now is in the bleeding area, hemophilia. It's still an issue that exists, but I think DNA manipulation will have the hemophilia disease go away by 2045. They have a market for now, but in 20 years, at least that's my thinking, these things will not really exist. It's a competition in there is from Roche. So it's basically Novo Nordisk and Roche doing hemophilia drugs and growth hormone drugs.
No, it's interesting because, I did this table and I was looking that even in 5 years, the whole mix of the company can change. I mean, rare disease was 16%, it's dropped to 6%. So I was thinking, can this go back? Can it not? And so, okay, so we got those out of the way. Our big discussion is, like you said, the Wegovy, Ozempic, the Rybelsus, and the new stuff coming in. The stock has dropped. The CEO's apparently kicked out with a mutual agreement.
Yeah.
So what do you think about that? I mean,
Let's just finish the other, because we don't need to on the rare disease area. This area, because the customers, they're very easy to find. You find them in hospitals. So marketing, support, everything is much less expensive than for diabetes and weight loss care. So the most, I haven't got the latest numbers, but the most profitable area of Novo Nordisk in the past was this rare disease area. It has much higher margins than the other business.
Oh, really?
Anyway.
Okay.
So I think at some point, I wouldn't be surprised if they dispose it. Because it's not really non-core. It's not really core for them to have it. So you say a 20 billion revenue stream with a 50% EBIT margin. So that's 10 billion a year. Let's say you can get it for 15 times to be conservative. That's 10% of the current market cap. And that it wouldn't change the company much. You could probably get more, but just to be on the safe side. Yeah. It's not growing much, if you recall, so it's just cash flow. Anyway, back to the CEO change, all the mess. Did I see this? No, not at all. I have a mail. We have a group of investors in Denmark where we discussed Novo Nordisk most of the time. We also discuss other times, but 80% of discussions around Novo Nordisk. And in July last year, I sent a mail saying, maybe I think they put a little bit too much on the plate, i.e. they buying Catalent to ramp up production capacity for the weight loss drugs. They are building new facilities in Denmark and in the US and also in France. They have acquired a number of adjacent businesses or made partnerships. And they are hiring, used to be 45,000 employees, the same as Eli Lilly. Eli Lilly is more or less unchanged. Novo Nordisk has hired 30,000 people over the last 5 or 6 years. So if you're the CEO of a business that changes so much within a relatively short period, I think most people would get stressed out and you probably outsource a lot of decisions. But eventually, by the end of the day, you have to take the decisions. And obviously, I don't know exactly what happened in the executive management group or in the board meetings, but I have a feeling that someone, and now the arrow points at the former CEO, they didn't say no often enough. They should have said no to a lot of these things that happened and then concentrated on that was the only warning sign I saw coming. Then December last year, there was they came out with trial results from next generation of weight loss drugs called cagrilintide, which can be pill-based as well. It showed 23% weight loss, and the management group had said, we expect them to deliver 25% weight loss. You would say, does it really matter, those 2 percentage points? Yes, apparently, because Novo Nordisk stock price fell 15% on that day. Since Eli Lilly have a drug that have these 25% weight loss profile. So it's just like Formula One. Who's best? Is it in one year or another? Is it Ferrari or Mercedes or Red Bull or whoever? There's tiny margins that decides who is number one in that given year. So Novo Nordisk had the pole position before, and now they are number two. And Eli Lilly is in the pole position.
But this is what shocks me is that, the CEO has grown the company so much. I mean, it's obviously a huge success. Yeah, if I get on a scale and I'm 23% down instead of 25% down, I'm still going to be very happy about those results.
All the things I mentioned before that put a little bit too much on the plate for the management team and the board. That could have a factor. The other thing is, if you looked at the script data out of the US, it seems that the total market, when the obesity or the weight loss franchise, when that started to emerge, I did on Sum Zero a report in early 2021. That's my first Sum Zero report, by the way. And at that point in time, the estimates for the obesity market in 2030 was like $25 billion US dollars. Then came Novo to market. Suddenly there's a big demand, and you know how easy it is to manipulate an Excel spreadsheet. And before you knew it, the 25 billion revenue pool in 2030 became 130 billion. Within 1.5 years, suddenly it became very big. Then there was some adjustments to it, and right now the spread is somewhere that in 2030 the revenue pool is somewhere between 80 and 120 billion US dollars, based on the latest script data. So there's some sensitivity. And I think the Novo Nordisk stock price decline, I put a picture on a graph on LinkedIn together with a bit of text on what happened the last year. And I'll repeat this when we meet at the Cyprus Value in a few weeks' time. But it's basically the total market for obesity drugs is a little bit unclear for the time being. And for Novo Nordisk, this has been taken as a negative, so we sent down the stock and only see it as a diabetes franchise with a other or rare disease business on top of it, and that should be trading at 12 times earnings, whereas Eli Lilly, we're quite certain they will grab more of the obesity or weight loss market, so we give that a 25 times earnings forward. Who's right in there? I don't know. Time will show, but I think the obesity area will continue to grow. Whether it gets to 80 billion or 120 or even higher, only time can show us. But we need a little bit more data to get confidence on that.
Well, do you think, even if Eli Lilly is marginally like said, whatever we said, 2% before, is there any other differences based on your research of this topic between the drugs, or is it just that tiny?
I have Novo Nordisk to do it. Novo Nordisk do the research. There's the latest that came out this Monday this week was that the pill-based version Eli Lilly is coming with. When you eat a 35 milligram dose, then you lose. This is tablet-based. Then you lose 11% of your weight, and there's a number of side effects listed. If you take the Novo Nordisk pill or tablet, it's a lower dose, 25 milligram. And the side effects are lower than Eli Lilly because there's less active ingredient, but you lose 16%. So when I saw these two, what do you prefer, 16 and 11? I mean, that's pretty obvious in Novo's favor. But still, it was rewarded with no reaction. Nordisk and Eli Lilly went up simply because of the fact that now they have the data they can use for a fast track to get a tablet to the market, more or less at the same time as Novo Nordisk. Novo will be launching either very late this year or in January, February next year, the tablet-based versions. So they were 8 months ahead of Eli Lilly. So maybe Lilly will come in March or April next year. But does it really change the big market that much? I don't think so.
Yeah, so Novo has a better pill coming out. Is that gone at the same stage? They're both proven. The one's 11 and the other's 16.
Yeah. So they'll both come to market within the next 6 months. But it's very strange that you have such an reaction in Novo Nordisk here. It was down 4%, I think, while Lilly was up 6%. There's something going on, a pair trade between those two stocks that doesn't necessarily look so much at the fundamentals, but more at the headline. Is the headline a positive or a negative? And then you do the pair trade on it. It's just my thinking.
What's the 16% drug?
CagriSema is the 16% weight loss tablet. CagriSema tablet based.
CagriSema, and that one's compared to the 11% Lilly one, which is, what's that one called?
Your Oleopor something. It's a very odd name. It's not. These drug names are not made for easy remembering.
Don't worry about it. So I see what you're saying. Yeah. Okay. So so things aren't so bad. If they're coming out with a pill that does 16%, to me, that sounds fantastic. So is that going to replace then Ozempic?
I think it will not replace, but they will complement each other. In the fast track to lose weight fast, injectables are more efficient. Once you have lowered your body weight to the desired level, then you start moving on to the tablets for maintenance. So I think these things, you could also start out with the tablets and then take a slower decline curve than you would have on the injection-based. But I think the big question is, how big is this market going to be? And right now there's question marks, and only more data from scripts, etc., and quarterly reports will show if things are actually moving in the direction of the upper end of the interval in 2030 or in the lower end. But I think no matter what, let's say it's 80 billion total revenue pool. Stock prices do not, at least in Novo Nordisk, I don't think the stock price reflect that very well for the time being.
So just so we're clear, now the Wegovy is basically purely for the obesity. So those who are on the obesity will go from the Wegovy to this Cargina tablet, or is there going to be another CagriSema? So, and then people on Ozempic, is there going to be a corresponding? Are they also going to go on to CagriSema? Can they, or is that a different thing?
Ozempic was the original diabetes drug.
Yes.
That you could then ask your doctor to get a prescription for, because it would give you weight loss. It was not part of the label on what it's supposed to be used for.
Okay.
Some doctors say it's okay. Serena Williams, she's getting it now. I think that's Wegovy, but you could have people getting Ozempic that did not have diabetes because they would lose weight. That's where the whole thing started to go fast.
Well, the reason I'm asking, I'll just make a step back. The reason I'm asking is because of how Novo puts it in their accounts. I was like, okay, Wegovy is under obesity, Ozempic is under diabetes, but essentially both of them can be used for weight loss. It's just that if you have diabetes, you're probably doing Ozempic, and rather than Wegovy.
Same active ingredient. The trials and the phase 2 and 3 has just been made with two different purposes, and hence we have two different names. CagriSema is mainly made for the. I think you could probably use it for diabetes if you want, but and then in 2029 there will be a new drug coming out, amycretin, which is the CagriSema and Wegovy. When you eat, they impact your stomach and the message from your stomach into your brain saying, okay, Ole, now you had enough to eat, stop eating, or don't feel hunger. So there's a 30-minute time lag when you are on these GLP-1s. Amycretin is with amylin, and that sends a message the minute you start eating or drinking sugar or soda or something like that. There's a message out to your blood cells or your cells in your body that within 2 minutes sends a message into your brain saying, okay, now you had enough, you don't need more. So there's a much faster reaction to how you feel full with the amycretin, and that drug or medicine will come to the market in 2029, and that's pretty promising. And I'm not really sure what position Eli Lilly has got in the amylin area, but there's a smaller biotech company, or market cap wise it's pretty big, but it's Zealand Pharmaceuticals. They are only going down by the amylin road for developing a drug, and Roche has made a deal with them that basically makes Roche into a third player in this market when we get into 2030.
Okay, that's interesting. So it's a constantly evolving space, and even though the Novo is in the dumpster now, it could very easily get a big boost. They also changed their science guy.
The big disappointment last year with CagriSema is the way they designed the study, that patients could basically decide themselves if they want to. You start on a low dose, and then if your tolerance is good, then you increase your dose levels. Patients that got, let's say you wanted to lose 20 kilo, and you can do that with a 1 milligram injectable. Then you don't go to 1.7 or 2.5 milligram. So people would stop, and that way around the data coming out of the trials, the 23%, which was a big disappointment, actually they were at a much higher level, but only for the ones that took the full dose all the way through. But that was a sideshow to the average of the total sample. So I think, I have no idea. So if anyone from Novo Nordisk listens to this, they can correct me. But I have no idea if this science guy that was ousted, if he was the responsible for designing the study. But it could be something like that.
Well, here's the guy found it from the transcript. Marcus Schindler, Executive Vice President of Research and Early Development and Chief Science Officer, is retiring after 7.5 years and 4 years in his current role. New research and development will be overseen by Martin Lang.
Martin Lang is the CSO.
Okay.
Yeah, Lange.
Yeah. Another thing that's been discussed besides Lilly is all these compounded drugs. And there's this argument that they're doing this personalized GLP-1s. Do you have any thoughts on that? It seems like that's an excuse.
Yeah, it's fully legal to do it. If a drug is a short supply, then you can make a copy of it. You can also make the active ingredient in a personalized way, and then sell it to, because let's say the Novo Nordisk injectables, they come in 0.25 milligram, half a milligram, 1 milligram, 1.7, and 2.5 milligram. So if your tolerance is better at 1.5 milligram, let's say, just to pick a number, that's not part of the current schedules that, then a compounder can make a personalized version at 1.5 milligram. That is allowed. The thing is, you have to do it personalized. What they're doing is basically doing it in industrial scale, and then inventing. It's not made on personal prescription, or it supposedly is.
Yeah.
But they're looping the systems a little bit too much. So Novo has now opened, I think, at least 80 legal cases about all these compounders, and some of them have given in and said, "Okay, we'll stop it and repay our profits." But some of the big ones, like Hims and Hers, are not giving in easily. So that battle is still going on, and will give volatility in the stock price from time to time. Can we maybe just one thing, when I mentioned amycretin, Novo Nordisk being a diabetes company, first time I realized they can be a weight loss company is in 2013, when I meet with the current CSO, and he explains it. At that point in time, there was also indications that it could work or GLP-1s could work as an antidepressant. Say, okay, that's something new. That's far out. That was a 2026 thing, he said, in 2013. I have no idea what it is right now. But that was far out enough that you should not factor any of that into the stock price. Yesterday, I was at a longevity seminar here in Copenhagen, and GLP-1s and all these new drugs, they could have many more positive effects, such as cardiovascular, antidepressant, even within Alzheimer and other expensive diseases that will be tested and shown for the coming years. So you could have the drug category as such broadening out its scope and then lessen the demand for other drugs in cancer or Alzheimer. That's more warm hands you need in that one because there's no treatment. But it could impact the total pharma economics spectrum quite a lot in the coming years, depending on what comes out from the trials.
Oh wow. And that would be massive. So especially if they go into,
that would be a big game changer.
Yes. Yeah, so basically it's a free option right now.
Yeah, if that there's no proof it works yet. But Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk both have Alzheimer tests going on. And if you take Alzheimer as such, the total pharma economics in there on lost taxes, because you have to take care of your family members, the total economics in there is more than $1 trillion a year in GDP. And the total pharma sector, all drugs, is $1.4 trillion. So it's if you can reduce the $1 trillion that is spent on warm hands and hospitalization and all that within the Alzheimer area, it just gives you a big upside for the global productivity and GDP not being spent in that direction. But I mean, these things are very difficult to factor into stock prices, in my opinion. You just keep them in mind, because if they show up, just like weight loss showed up, learned about it in 7 years before it actually started to impact the stock price. So you just have to keep it in mind. If something happens, it could be because of these positive side effects out of GLP.
Okay. What do you think about, every now and again, there's always this also discussion about pricing. Trump has made a big deal out of, expensive drugs, blah, blah, blah. I think I've seen you post a couple of times in the group chat about your thoughts on that. I don't know if you want to share anything here.
Yeah, it's basically a U.S. issue, that you have list prices in the U.S. that the insurance or pharma benefit organizations, they get apparently some kind of bonus for how much discount they can negotiate. So you just increase the official list price more and more, and then you negotiate a 30% discount, next year 40%, year after 50%, but the net price is more or less the same. You just get higher and higher official gross prices. Unfortunately, some individuals have to pay the official gross prices, and for Wegovy, it's $1,375 per month, which is quite a mouthful in order to lose weight. If you buy it on Hims and Hers, you get it for $400, I think it is. Novo Nordisk and Eli Lilly have now made direct-to-consumer propositions where you, including the doctor appointment and script, get it for $500 a month, which is pretty close to what the volume insurance companies buy at. They buy at $375, as far as I can find out. Again, $375, take that number. I use Japan and UK as good example. What is the price I use in my forecasting? And that's $250 per month per customer or per client, because that's what you pay in those countries. So my modeling is that prices will come lower and injectables will be $250. I think the tablet-based version, once mature and up and going in big volumes, will be more like $150 a month, which is certainly within reach for at least 100 million persons on this planet to pay by themselves, probably even more. But you say 100 million people times $150 a month times 12 months, then you get a revenue pool that's significantly bigger than the numbers I mentioned before. Mm-hmm. So the 150 might even be too high, could be going lower. But the volumes, it's basically a volume and price game when we get into 2035.
But once people lose weight, they don't need to continue taking it.
Now, then you have a tendency to gain a little bit of weight if you stop again. If you do the traditional way of losing weight, don't eat. 90% of weight gain is from this way. Exercise and all that is just 10%. So you have to basically stitch this one for 2 weeks and then you lose weight.
You're 100% right. We just have to close our mouths a little bit.
If we're just at home for a week and living pretty regular, I lose weight. The minute I start traveling and you have a little bit of food in the lounge when you start out, and then you go to restaurants and you live a little bit more unsystematic than compared to normal, then I gain a little bit of weight. So I think stability is a big part of it.
Is the key. And well, next month you're going to gain weight. We're going to be drinking those beers at the pool. So
that's going to be a nightmare.
That's going to be a nightmare.
I'll really look forward.
Yeah, me too. So, okay, going back to Novo. So you're assuming you made some assumptions, and what do you want to share, like, where do you see Novo in a few years' time based on this? I mean, or their earnings or their sales or something like that.
Yeah, I think I do it very simple. I do all my modeling. I do not really share it with anyone. But actually, the first one I made on Novo Nordisk, my first model is from 1998.
Oh my God.
Including some product lines. So it's saved them in date order. So whenever there's changes, I put in a new date, Novo Nordisk stock price, and then whatever changes I did to it, abbreviated. So then I have a big archive on this one. But so boil it all down to EPS. And then because Novo Nordisk cash EPS is pretty close to its reported EPS. It's a straightforward company in terms of accounting and the way they do things. Right now, it seems that this year will be a EPS around 24.5 kroner per share. And then 2030 some estimates were above 50 kroner per share. And right now it seems that Mr. Market is thinking, it's only going to be 30 kroner per share because the obesity revenue line is not getting into, 300 billion level, but closer to last year it was 65. So let's say it's 150 billion in 2030. If that's the case, you get an EPS which is closer to 30-35 level. You multiply that one. The historical multiple has been 22.5. Right now there's a little bit of uncertainty, so maybe you just put on 18 times earnings, and so 18 times 33 is 600. Okay, the stock is trading at 360. It pays out dividends equal to almost 4% a year. So it's a dividend stock right now for the first time that I can ever recall. But if you do the IRR from investor point, let's say 360 to 600 in how many years? 4.5 years? It's 12% a year. That's okay. I prefer 15. But if you add on the dividend, then you're at 15. So it's right now it's in the buy zone, even at the lower levels of
you said
valuation.
You mentioned about cash, and this one thing is kind of like, and this is something the analysts were also asking, I think, on the call, is like, they got some elevated capex now. They've said their maintenance capex is more like 5%. So I guess if they reach a sort of mature stage, they'll be kicking out some insane cash, it seems. I don't know if you have any thoughts on
the minute all the construction stops on these production sites in the US, France, and here in Denmark, then cash flow will, for a period, be looking better than the reported earnings. And the leverage on that stuff is, it's a 85% gross margin. So the SG&A, R&D, and CapEx, if you just use those metrics, then the cash flow should be starting to look pretty significant. So I think there will be no debt in 2 years from now. They have debt for the first time in 20 years. There will be no debt in 2 years' time. the share buybacks, they should have started back. They did buybacks when the stock was trading at 1,000. At 300, they do nothing. This is so silly. So why don't you restart the buybacks? So I think that's part of the game plan for the new CEO, Mike Dustar. There's also all the 30,000 new people that have joined the company, as I mentioned before. The ones that were supposed to start on the 1st of September, they got notification yesterday that they don't have to come anyway. But we will pay you 1 month's salary and we will help you find a new job. So it's a fair deal. But no new employees coming into the company from now on. And I think there'll be a cutback of maybe 5,000 or 8,000 individuals over the next 12 months. So you'll see the cost base going down anyway.
So the cost base will go down and CapEx will likely go down. So, I mean, I think consensus is for like 100 million free cash flow in 27.
Yeah.
I mean, 100 billion, not 100 billion in 27.
In 27, cash operating earnings, I have a little bit more than that. It was 100 last year. Here it is. I have 130 in 27 in my model.
For free cash flow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously, I can't, change in working capital. It's impossible to do any forecasting on that one. Market cap is 1.5, so it trades at, it's a cash flow yield of 8%. It's not bad.
Yep.
It's not a company you can copy easily.
So I would say probably that's high, 8%. I mean, I don't know what the other, the other companies are doing.
Now, the whole pharmaceutical sector is for the time being not very expensive. Actually, it's the lowest valuation for ages. Part of it is due to exactly the U.S. pricing. And I read a statistic last night that the U.S. net pricing, it's unchanged for 5 years, despite all the inflation. Then net pricing for drugs in the U.S. has, in real terms, gone down like 15%. So it's not so strange. If you look at the Pfizer, Bristol Myers, all these guys, their stock prices are, in terms of valuation, trading, some of the cheap ones are even down at 7 and 8 times forward. I think Johnson & Johnson trading at 12 times forward, something like that.
Yeah.
It looks like a bargain, the whole sector.
Yeah. I mean, the average multiples, like I have here, the average PE is about 12, 13, and EV to EBIT is about 12 as well. So, yeah.
And that includes Eli Lilly, the biggest one of them all, with the 25 times forward.
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on the operating margin? It seems the operating margin, it jumped. Now it's come back down. Do you think that's going to stay with, around the historical levels of around, 40, 42%? Or do you think that's going to...
Yeah, I actually... Due to the metrics of the gross margin, I think will go up once they have all the new capacity up and going. And then the R&D is, I have 13.5% going forward. OPEX ex R&D I have as a fixed of 20% of sales, but declining to 19 5 years from now, and then straight at 19 from there. It could go lower. So it's a pretty easy company to model. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them going with a 45% EBIT margin.
Okay. Yeah.
Only time will show if this is the most ideal time to jump into the stock. I'm invested all the way up and all the way down. But actually this year, last time I bought was in 2017. And then again, here in 2025.
Why didn't you sell
any? I sold
any?
a few. Why? Yeah, that's a good. Why didn't I sell last summer? The ones I have different accounts. If you have to pay a 42% tax on your sale, which is some accounts in Denmark, then the amount you can invest afterwards is much smaller. So that doesn't make any sense. If you just keep it, you can go out in smaller brackets along the way. But in tax exempt accounts, it would have made sense to sell. So why didn't I sell? There was a lot of You know, I do these podcasts on Børsen, and one of the other investors said, maybe it's time to sell Novo Nordisk in August last year. He didn't sell a single stock. But it's a quite interesting podcast to listen to now, because all the arguments for selling were good. Valuation at 40 times forward, cash flows going down due to all these investments and acquisitions.
Yeah.
Suddenly companies into net debt, they will stop buybacks. All the arguments were there. Still, he didn't sell, and I didn't sell. I think that's where, if you want to be a good investor, you have to take these things and really investigate yourself. Why didn't you react when it was so obvious? That's what we discuss over a beer in Cyprus.
Yeah. So do you have any other thoughts you'd like to share on Novo or anything? I know we're going to talk about this also in Cyprus, but now that we have the time.
Yeah, so for the ones that listen this episode from start to end, I think you got all the ingredients. It's basically, to sum it up, it's a stock price, let's say from 2015, the last 10 years, the stock price is still up like, what is it, 6 times? Something like that. It's done, or 3 times, 4 times. It's done pretty well. It's not an underperformer in the longer run. However, the 60% stock price decline over the last year could be a tremendous opportunity, but one needs to get more firm ground under how is the obesity market going to develop, and how is Novo Nordisk's position in there, and if the positive side effects from the GLP-1s and amycretin, if they can expand the runway for Novo Nordisk and maybe also for Eli Lilly, how is that reflected in stock price? Not very well. And then I think in the shorter term, it's about script data. It's about communication, what the new CEO is going to do in terms of cost base. And then hopefully they will restart the stock repurchase program with the third quarter report coming out in early November.
What would make you change your mind?
A really stupid acquisition.
Okay.
There's rumors. But if they do any merger for the time being, that would be what do you call it in football? A self-goal, something like that.
Yep. So
I think it would make a lot of sense when the stock trades at 35 times forward at a much higher price. Then you could do a stock deal with another large pharmaceuticals, but doing it at this level would be completely idiotic.
Yep. No, that's good to hear, because it means you feel confident about what they're doing, about the cash flow, about their products, and really that it's just more of a corporate governance thing. And I'm with you with that. Yeah, I agree 100%. I've sold companies because of such situations, to be honest. Companies I liked, but went on stupid spending sprees that I didn't want to be part of. Oh, this is great. I think
we got the frame for a good discussion, even though it's just a 20-minute thing in Cyprus.
Yeah, we got, and this is why I wanted to do
breaks.
Yeah. And so, this has been fantastic. I appreciate you taking the time to do this. If people want to reach out to you, how would they do that? With LinkedIn, or do they go to Nordic Investment Partners? You have a website, isn't it? Nordic Investment Partners.
NordicInvestmentPartners.com. So you just Google it, it pops up. There's no one else with that name. And even there's, for the time being, in the front page, there's my Novo Nordisk thinking. And it will be, when next thing I put up, then it will be as a PDF in an archive. But you find all the stuff I'm doing in there.
Okay, great.
Not all the stuff. All the good stuff is in there.
All the good stuff.
I look forward to see you in a few weeks' time.
Yeah, thank you.
And discuss Novo Nordisk and a lot of other good investments, hopefully.
Yeah, yes, for sure. All right, well, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
The podcast episodes should not be copied, distributed, published, or reproduced in whole or in part without the prior written consent of the host. These recordings are for informational purposes only. This recording does not address all risks. The podcast is not intended to be relied upon as a forecast, research, or investment advice, and are not a recommendation, offer, or solicitation to buy or sell any securities or to adopt any investment strategy. The views and opinions of any podcast participants are subject to change and are not necessarily those of any companies affiliated or associated with the participants. The participants cannot guarantee the accuracy of the information in this podcast and has not independently verified the accuracy or completeness of such information or the assumptions on which such information is based. There is no guarantee that any forward-looking information will come to pass. Reliance upon information on this podcast is at the sole discretion of the reader and or listener. Past performance is not indicative of current or future results. This podcast is being made available for educational purposes only and should not be used for any other purpose.